Let's talk about bones. Bones are a way of manipulating an object, of twisting it and bending it and stretching it, even making characters walk. Many people have an aversion to using bones, but they're really pretty simple to use. Now, I suggest if you're starting to learn bones, even if you're using Lightwave 8, be sure you're using the 7.5 style layout because the buttons are much more accessible. There's a couple that are much easier to use. The default for Lightwave 8 has a number of really important new tools, but you have to understand the basics before you appreciate how those work. So I'm using the 7.5 interface. First of all, I'm going to load an object. I'm not going to load a character. I'm actually just going to load my logo object. So it doesn't need to be a character or something fancy. You know how to build this. First thing I'm going to do, bones. Under items, add bone. The important thing to understand is when you add a bone, it is deactivated. It has no effect. It's just another layout item that's permanently parented to the object. I'm moving it to the side. I'm going to create key so it stays there. I'm now going to add another bone, a second bone. I'm not even going to rename it and move it over here and create a key. So I now have an object that has two bones. Alright, I just want add bone, and I moved it and keyframed it so they stick there. I'm now going to activate this bone. I can do it by clicking on bone active or simply hitting the R key. See how that changed? Switch to the other bone, hit R. It's now activated. Well, big deal. I've got active bones. However, look at this. I can twist and turn my object. Create key there so it's zeroed out. Do the same thing with the other bone. Create key. And somewhere in the middle, I'm going to twist the bone there. Create key. Twist it there. Do some contra movement. And that is all there is to getting bones to work. Let's start over. Clear scene. Load up my logo object. Add bone. Add bone. And add bone. Got three bones here. Number one. We'll move it over here. Keyframe it in place. I'll leave two where it is. By the way, I'm hitting my arrow keys up and down to cycle through the list. Arrow 3, over here. Keyframed into position. Now I'm going to activate it. I've got bone 1 activated. I'm hitting R. Now it's activated. By the way, with only one bone, it affects everything equally. So that's why you always need more than one bone. Oop. Activated. Activated. I now have 3 active bones. So what I'm going to do is move my center bone up, create key, that one forward, create key. In fact, now might be a good time for auto key. Move that one back. And also create a key for that 60, and that one at 60. And at 30, I'm going to reverse their positions. And then, so I've got this going on. And halfway through, create a key here, move it up in the air. And I did exactly the wrong thing. So let's delete that key. I actually want it up in the air right about here. And I'm going to do the opposite with the other side. And as I scrub through this, and I leave it play, look at that. Almost looks like my logo is walking. In fact, let's get some hip swinging in here. Create a key there so it's at 0. Go to rotate. You need to rotate the other way. Also need that keyframe at 60. Oh, look at that. I did that in less than 5 minutes. I created a character animation of this logo walking. Actually, I did it twice in 5 minutes. All I did, add bone, position it, create a keyframe for it, added a second bone, positioned it, keyframed it into place, and then hit R. There's an important... You can position the bones when in any place. You can rotate them. The one thing you cannot do to a bone is size it before you position it, because it'll make it crazy. Let's save this one. Save scene as logo walk, and I'll show you what I mean by that. And this is very important. This is a major stumbling block. I'm going to add bone, and I can do anything I want to it right now. Position it there. Add bone. Move it there. Rotate it. Keyframe it. Now I can activate it. Which is a whole lot different than when I use the R key. So I like using the R key just for that reason. Now the same thing can happen. I'll take those bones out. I add a bone. Just like before. Put it there, keyframe it. I've got auto key on. Add bone. And it's auto keyed there, so it stays there. Now say I wanted these to match up with each letter or only be the depth. See, it's way too big. You would think I could just resize it. Like if I have a lot of bones or if I'm doing fingers. The problem is when I activate these keys, look what happens. This happens to everybody. What you need to do when you're adding bones and you need it to be a different size, there is a tool called rest length, because what we're doing here is setting the rest position. So you can change your rest length. You can even punch it in numerically, which is a good idea. Create key. Well, we've got that key. I can make this one go to rest length. Make it much bigger if necessary. You see, this is why I built the object around 1 meter, because that's another reason Lightwave likes things around the default unit. So we have our objects that size. I can activate them with the R key. It has not messed up the scale. Now I might have a person here and I might need a big bone for his chest and his legs and his thighs, but then I need smaller ones when I get to the fingers and the knuckles. That's when you use rest length. Now this also shows up in the object properties or item properties for bones. Your rest length is right here, along with a whole lot of other settings that we don't need to worry about right now. And in Lightwave 8, if you're using the default setup, unless you've added the button, this is where you need to go to set your rest length. But that is all there is to adding bones and using bones. Once they're attached to the object, they are activated. They are just like any other item. You can keyframe them, the size. You can use them on logos, characters, pieces of equipment, whatever. But there really is no big trick to using bones as far as getting them started. Once you get into more advanced character animation, the bone influences start overlapping, and you get things like muscle flexing and bulging and lots of other interesting things, but all that can be adjusted in the Bones Properties panel.